Hi, I'm Aubrey with the Hello Bitcoin Project, and today we're going to talk about Bitcoin's environmental impact. It's an important topic, and I'm excited to clear up some misconceptions about it, so let's dig in. Maybe this describes you. You've heard about Bitcoin, you're curious about it, and perhaps even appreciate some of the ways in which it can become a better form of money for the entire world. But you've also heard that Bitcoin consumes a lot of energy, and so you're concerned that it could be really bad for the environment. This is a very common concern, probably the most common concern we get from folks when it comes to learning about Bitcoin. And so let's dig into it. Is Bitcoin actually bad for the planet? Let me first say that, like most people, I care about the environment. I can't help but think about climate change and what I can do to make things better. From a young age, I was taught to reduce my personal energy consumption in small but important ways. Turning off the lights when I leave a room, air drying my clothes as much as I can, buying local, taking public transit as much as possible. Obvious stuff that has now become second nature to me. And so on the surface of it, a new technology that consumes a lot of energy as part of its design just kind of feels wrong, doesn't it? It goes against our collective instinct to be more responsible and to use less energy. So I totally get the concern. The thing is, that knee-jerk instinct is wrong. Lots of things about Bitcoin are counterintuitive, especially when it comes to its energy use. The irony is, Bitcoin can be a hugely positive force for renewable energy in the world. And it's a shame that people haven't yet connected the dots. So I'm going to try to help you see Bitcoin in this new light. To do that, let's review some facts about Bitcoin's energy consumption. And then let's talk about the nature of the energy that it consumes. And finally, let's look ahead and imagine Bitcoin operating at a much bigger scale one day. Fact number one. Yes, Bitcoin does consume a lot of energy. That is not something that can be ignored. The Bitcoin network currently consumes about 95 terawatt hours of electricity per year globally. To put that in perspective, it's on par with the amount of energy consumed by clothes dryers just in the US. So while that's a lot, it's not a disproportionate amount. Energy consumption is a bit of a misnomer because the energy being used is not being wastefully burned up. It's serving a very useful function. As we saw in our third video, Bitcoin miners take all this electricity and transform it into security for the network. Security that is absolutely necessary for two reasons. First, to keep trillions of dollars of value of people's savings completely safe from theft. And second, to make it possible for any two people in the world to safely transact with each other without anyone's permission. This is the heart of what Bitcoin does. There simply is no other way for a fair, neutral digital money to be secure without energy at its core. As we all intuitively know, there is no free lunch. I think it's also helpful to zoom out and consider Bitcoin's energy consumption with some context. Our existing money, let's call it old money, isn't environmentally friendly, right? Think of all the old and analog institutions, governments, employees, bureaucracies, equipment, armed guards, oil refineries, vehicles, manufacturing facilities, ships, legal processes, and distribution systems that need to come together to make the existing financial system work. It's hard to even estimate a precise figure for it all, but it's a staggering large and polluting and inefficient system. On the other hand, Bitcoin can be thought of as the electrification of money by going purely digital. Just as electric cars like Teslas are much better for the environment than gas vehicles, we can think of this new electric money as technology that brings the global financial system into the modern age, with super efficient production and distribution capability that moves its energy footprint entirely to the electricity grid. Not to mention the happy side effect of, at the same time, dramatically improving financial inclusivity for billions who need it. So the fact that Bitcoin is electricity powered is actually a huge improvement, helping us do away with the more wasteful and less fair facets of our old financial and monetary systems. Now let's dig a layer deeper and talk about the nature of the energy that Bitcoin consumes. When thinking about the environmental impact of Bitcoin or any technology for that matter, it's not the amount of energy consumed that's most relevant, but rather the carbon footprint of that energy. Coal, for instance, emits huge amounts of CO2, whereas hydroelectric power, solar, and other renewable sources are very clean. So let's focus on that. What type of energy is Bitcoin consuming? It might surprise you to know that a huge proportion of Bitcoin mining is already being done from clean and renewable sources. It's somewhere between 40 to 70% depending on the time of year. And by way of comparison, if you look at all the industrial uses of energy in the US, like manufacturing, agriculture, transportation, Bitcoin is way ahead of other sectors when it comes to the proportion of its energy that is from renewables. And we can only expect this trend to continue. The main reason this is the case is simply economics. Bitcoin is designed to consume the lowest cost energy available anywhere in the world. And low-cost energy is generally energy that is unusable or unwanted, which happens all the time with renewable sources. Think of the wind blowing through a wind farm at night, creating electricity at a time when everyone is sleeping and it is not needed. Now, Bitcoin mining can productively and profitably make use of that energy that would otherwise have gone to waste and use that electricity to secure the network. An even starker example comes from oil and gas exploration. As it turns out, when drilling out an oil well, some excess natural gas has to be literally lit on fire and burned. It's called flaring, and it is 100% wasteful. This isn't a small thing. So much gas is flared that all the waste energy could power the entire Bitcoin network many times over. What's cool is there are now special Bitcoin mining facilities that can capture flared natural gas and transform it into Bitcoin security rather than flaring it wastefully into the atmosphere, significantly reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the process. This is Bitcoin mining literally eating air pollution. In the long term, since the cheapest energy in the world will eventually come from clean and renewable sources, we can expect the percentage of Bitcoin mined through clean and renewable sources to eventually approach 100%, which is comforting to know. And given that Bitcoin can help make renewable projects more profitable from day zero, we can expect to see more renewable projects come online, which means more R&D and faster progress towards that long-term target of 100% renewable power. Speaking of the long term, what actually happens if Bitcoin succeeds and becomes the world's single currency? Will it use more energy than the world can produce? The answer is no. The common misconception is that more and more transactions mean more and more energy consumption. That simply is not the case. The energy required to mine a Bitcoin block with one transaction or 10,000 transactions is exactly the same. More importantly, the way that Bitcoin will serve the whole world's population is by allowing instant and very cheap transactions on new layers built on top of the Bitcoin blockchain. New technologies like the Lightning Network allow for an almost unlimited amount of transactions to take place, all without needing to be settled on the Bitcoin ledger, and thus having hardly any energy impact whatsoever. But if Bitcoin adoption does rise dramatically, the price of Bitcoin will probably go up significantly as well. And with the price increase, mining becomes more profitable, and so we'll see more mining, which means more energy consumption. Fortunately, if you do the math, even in very optimistic scenarios for Bitcoin adoption and price, the overall energy consumption remains well below 1% of the total global energy output, which seems entirely reasonable for a new and fair money system for the whole world. To be completely honest, I think it is perfectly valid to scrutinize Bitcoin and hold it to a high ethical standard. I think we all should do that. But when you peel back the layers and study where energy comes from and how it's used in Bitcoin, it's hard to see that anything is wasteful. It's actually quite the opposite. By electrifying money, Bitcoin makes money super efficient, super clean, and super accessible to everyone. I hope this video helped you think about Bitcoin's energy consumption in a new light. It's admittedly a nuanced topic, and it took me a long time to fully appreciate how all the pieces fit together. Come ask us in the Hello Bitcoin community any questions you might still have. See you next time.